What is this color that I have? I don't understand. Do I have a filter on accidentally? Let's see here. No, I don't want to cancel that. Where the fuck? Yes, I would like to do this. Go here. Is he on? No, he got his thing. I'm not sure why I look like this. No. Jeremy, is that you?
Hello, that is me.
Okay, so actually, you want to be a
Ooh,
co-host, and right now you're a multiplayer or some shit.
ooh, how do we
So
change that?
so basically, whatever I just did, get out of that, and then
Okay.
go live yourself, and then
All right.
we'll do the dang thing.
Okay, that'll work. Hold on one second.
Okay, let's see. I don't understand why I have this fucking thing. Hello, anime. Hi, how's it going, Sarah? I'm just having some trouble with the effects, per usual. Oh, no, no, no. That's actually hilarious. Oh my God. Okay. I don't want any effects, but I feel like I have. That was hilarious, right? Don't I look kind of sepia? Hi, Chris. All right, let's see. All right, now what we're gonna do is go. Okay, so hey,
Go.
there we did it.
Hello. May I ask how you pronounce your name? Is it Finn?
Fen,
Finn? Okay, good. All right.
like a pen you write with, yeah.
Okay. I know it should be easy, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no worries. Something weird is happening. I'm trying to. I guess I have to unclip this if I use it. That's interesting.
I better put in my other earbud because I'm an old man and I can't hear. There we go.
Okay, wait.
What?
Did this work? Bear with us, folks. We are just doing some. I don't know what we're doing. Some tech shit. Because we're old farts.
The brute of fear. Hi there. I love your background.
Oh, thank you. Isn't that a little altar space? I like yours
Yeah.
too.
Thanks. It's a cheap Amazon Galaxy lamp.
Yeah, is that what that is?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. For some reason, I am in like a sepia tone situation and I don't know why, but I
Oh,
guess we'll do.
yeah, I thought that was intentional to make it kind of spooky in a way, but
No, but
no.
does it look okay? Because I guess we'll keep it.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks very antique and spooky. I dig it.
Okay. How are you? Nice to like kind of meet you. This is
Yeah.
meeting you.
Yeah, it is kind of on screen meet. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Yeah. I mean, honestly, fucking overwhelmed. Have you ever done a Kickstarter?
No, no, no. Other than maybe like an old motorcycle or something, but never like a financial thing.
Yeah. It's definitely gnarly. I'm struggling. Hi, Vampire Jack.
Oh, happy birthday, Adam Colbert or Adam
Oh
Colbert,
yeah.
whatever it is.
Happy birthday. So I heard that you can. merge the chats, but I haven't figured out how to do that. So at any point throughout this process, folks, we'll just kind of go back and forth and, you answer your folks, I'll answer mine.
All right, that works. That works.
Yeah. Let me make sure. Oh, this is why. Ha! I was like, why can't I hear you? No, I
Is that
can.
better? Better? Okay.
Yeah.
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 There
That's
we
cool.
go.
That's cool. All right, cool. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I want to start by saying that I accidentally today in my TikTok said that you are a paranormal investigator.
No, not quite.
I lied.
Not quite.
You are not.
I am not. No.
You are
Hello there,
not.
Vampire Jack. No, not in the traditional sense, I suppose. More like a paranormal themed video investigator, inspector, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I did a little research on you, and so you generally debunk cryptids and shit, right? I mean, that's your like main paranormal phenomena that you debunk. Is that right?
Yeah, really anything paranormal that people believe they've captured on film or photo. I'm always taking a look at to see what it could be, what else it could be besides something paranormal. And with the exception of maybe 2 videos, I've not seen very much that didn't have another explanation, unfortunately.
That is very interesting. I also realized that we're talking to 2 audiences, so maybe I should back up and like we should do a little intro.
Yeah, feel free.
Would you like to intro yourself to the new blood, and then I'll switch to your fam?
Sure. So, my name is Jeremy, sometimes called Mr. Twilight. But I have a TikTok channel and social media channel that I created a few years ago, and it has turned into kind of a paranormal. I don't want to call it a debunking channel because that's not really my aim. But looking into things people have captured or recorded that some might claim to be paranormal, and kind of compare it to traditional folklore, if that's an entity that they're referring to, comments, kind of understand what people believe, the things that they believe. And I give my opinion, somewhat sarcastically at times, on whether or not I feel what they're looking at could be genuine. And then I also talk a lot about folklore, Appalachian folklore, scary stories in general, things like that.
Yeah, so you said you didn't start out as a debunker, but you sort of just like in the way that you investigate the phenomena, it just happened naturally.
It did. So I have a background in religious studies, but that is heavily influenced by psychology, the psychology of religion, folklore, and of course history. And how this all started was me telling scary stories, really. Things that people I know have experienced that they consider to be paranormal, things that I've experienced, and then just stories from traditional Appalachian folklore. And what I started to find were people tagging me in videos on this app where people were claiming that what they were seeing was something from or some type of entity that I might have talked about from some form of folklore, be it Appalachian or indigenous or otherwise. And people were really getting things wrong.
Yeah.
Very wrong. So I kind of started making videos responding, hey, this is not what you are seeing. This is something else. Here's what this traditional entity should be like. Here's what you are seeing. They're not jiving. So something is wrong here. And I went from being a channel that told scary stories and made fun of myself for being a large, hairy gay man to being the guy that debunks everything. I don't know how I made that jump. I mean, I guess I can see how it evolved, but yeah, that's the direction we went.
Wait, channel? You went from a channel to a
TikTok,
debunker?
TikTok channel.
Oh,
I
oh,
went from being a silly channel about,
got it, got it, got it.
gay bear stuff to
Yeah,
debunking.
yeah. I thought you meant like a medium, and I was like,
No,
wow,
no,
that
no,
is
no,
a
no, no, no,
stretch.
no.
Yeah.
Nope.
Well, so for your listeners, my name is Fen Alankus, and I am the creator of New Blood TV. We basically are trying to put together two all queer television shows that are investigating the paranormal, and we do it from a lens that's much more feminist and also we're all healthy skeptics. And that's one of the reasons why we contacted you, Jeremy, is because, we do this thing when we're on set where if somebody experiences something, before we go nuts and say, like, oh, la, 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 and I'll talk about it, we say, don't say anything, just write it down. And then over here, we'll have somebody, say, okay, did you? And then we try to see if everybody had the same experience. And I mean, and there are lots of different ways that we try to sort of you prove the accuracy as much as you can within the paranormal world. I think it's mostly like, and I'm sure you've realized this. It's like it's just the how do you call it? Not the process. It's like the last thing. If it is like you've gone through all the options and it is paranormal, then at that point, you can't really prove much about it. Just that like all of these other things are not it, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that is great, and that's one of the reasons that I was down with going live with you folks because I've tried to get through paranormal investigation television shows, and if I could make it past the first episode, it's a miracle.
It's
If I
so
can
bad.
make it past the first three or four, it's surprising because it's very clear to me that far too many paranormal investigators have a massive confirmation bias,
Hmm.
and they're
Yeah.
really doing everything they can not to truly investigate, but to prove to you and themselves
Hmm.
that what they or others are experiencing is real. And that's not an investigation.
No.
So yeah, I very much appreciate a more balanced approach, and it's something that I've been looking for and really and even talking about on my channel for a long time when discussing paranormal investigation shows.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. We made these shows because we were like making the thing that we wanted to see. It just wasn't there. And I mean, we are not banishers. We don't prove shit. We don't, we are there to make contact with whatever has been reported to us in whatever way we can, and we never ever leave out the fact that our minds could be what's generating the quote unquote phenomena.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's not talked about a lot, and I don't know if it's because the networks are trying to like, they don't want you to think that it's not, again, quote unquote real, or I'm not sure, but it's just not on the table, and we talk about it all the time.
Well, I think large networks, when they're thinking about shows, they're thinking about entertainment value. And I don't think a lot of people, or maybe in their minds, the type of people that watch paranormal investigation television shows are not typically the type of people who are more prone to believe in the paranormal anyway.
Hmm.
Wait a minute, or are people who are more prone to believe in the paranormal.
Right.
So perhaps a more balanced approach or even a more skeptical approach isn't what they would find to be entertaining because it's not confirming the bias of the viewer, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
People, I talk about Appalachian folklore a lot, and I've really kind of gone after these folks who think that there's something in the trees in Appalachia. I'm sure you've probably seen those
Yeah.
videos. And people will come back and say, you could market this. You could market the region of Appalachia and how spooky it is and these things people think in the trees. And it's like, how do you market that? Because people are going to come here, they're going to go out in the woods, see there's nothing in the trees, and then they're going to go home, and that's going to be the end of it. And it's kind of that way, I think, with paranormal investigation TV shows. If you're not giving them something, if you're not giving people what they want to see, or what a network thinks people want to see, they're not interested. But I know that I would love to see a paranormal investigation show that is more balanced, and includes a more skeptical element to that show, or even is a bit more science-based. And I'm sure there's many, many other people that would be interested in that as well.
Yeah, well, that's what we're hoping for sure. I mean, I have a film background, and I moved from LA to Louisville, and the weird Appalachia is what kind of drew me to here, also, and vampires, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
And but I also have a background in comparative religion as well. I took a lot of those courses in college, and I think that you just have to be, it's, there's a reason that Scully and Mulder were like the best combo of a team. You know, there was the Scully who was like, hold on a ding dang second, and then there was the Mulder who was like, I believe everything. But I am a Mulder, but Mulder also was really big on, he had an experience, and he had exhausted all of the other options and was like so driven by discovering what that could have been. And I'm driven by that same thing. But like, what are you driven by as somebody who now is like debunking everything? Is it just to see like, is there actually something paranormal happening?
So I live in a very old home, and I had some strange experiences when I was younger, several. But I always had a bit of an explanation for most of them, insomnia or something along those lines. And when I moved into this place, I not only was I experiencing things, but my neighbors were experiencing things. People who visited here were experiencing things. And I remember laying here and just thinking, I live in a freaking haunted house. I live in a haunted house. I'm not the only one who is experiencing things, so I'm not crazy. This house must be haunted. And what I found after I accepted that was that I was having more and more and more experiences that you could consider to be paranormal. Well, one day, I was laying in my bed. I had just woke up, and I heard someone walking outside my bedroom, and I heard someone walking down my stairs. Should have been no one here, nobody. And that was it. That was my proof. I got out my phone, and I recorded the audio of this, whatever it was, walking in my house. And I was so excited about it because I had confirmed this is definitely it. I know I'm awake. There's nothing else going on. That has to be something walking in my house. Told a whole bunch of people, sent the audio out, yada, yada. So I walk out my door, and I live in an upstairs apartment. Essentially, you walk out of the apartment, then you can go down the stairs. It's an old creaky, everything creaks. And I noticed there were boxes from UPS outside my door. Normally, that never happens because I keep my front door locked, so they leave the boxes out there. What had happened was that I left my front door unlocked. They just came in and walked up to my apartment door and left it there. If they knocked, that it must have woken me up, and I just didn't hear them knocking. All I heard was them leaving. And it was like, man, I wanted to believe so much that this was it. This was the moment. And it was the frickin' UPS man. So at that point, I got thinking more and more about the things that I've encountered here and the things that I've encountered in the past, and realized that my confirmation bias was driving what I believe to be truly paranormal. Yes, I've had experiences that I can't quite explain, but the more I looked into it, the more I realized that there's generally an explanation for all of this stuff. And I think that became a motivator in the debunking aspect. Now, that's not why I debunk so many of these things. The reason that I debunk a lot of things is because if you've been on social media for a while, particularly TikTok, it doesn't take much for a conspiracy to form out of something people are posting that is they claim to be paranormal. And when you look at how aggressively people will attack you, don't believe what they're saying, or you attempt to prove that what they're claiming to see is not real, it's a little scary.
Yeah.
And there have been instances of people committing violent acts as a result of conspiracies and conspiracies that began from alleged paranormal phenomenon, and it's a bit scary to me. So, I think I've just been on a crusade to not so much investigate the paranormal, but more debunk grifters and challenge grifters who would use the paranormal and people's confirmation bias to either gain clout or to further some strange conspiracy that has the potential to be dangerous, or who are misrepresenting folklore, particularly indigenous folklore. And a lot of that stems from me just looking at my own confirmation biases and realizing, hey, if this applies to me, it probably applies to everybody.
Yeah.
That was a lot. I should have shut up like 5 minutes ago.
No, I love it. I love it. And it's like you can hear how, I mean, it made me think of this conversation we had earlier about QAnon. I was talking with some vampires about QAnon, said no
Yeah.
one ever. And just how it's really scary. There's this thing happening where you kind of go so left, I'll say, that you go right. It's like the snake kind of eats itself. And you're seeing this all the time, like people who I might have done some woo stuff, as I call it, like woo-woo stuff with. I won't anymore because they've now become QAnoners and they believe this like one conspiracy that actually makes no sense and could take 2 minutes of research to debunk.
Yeah.
And then they just like go on these crazy crusades and they're like, you don't believe this. There's something fundamentally fucking wrong with you. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how did this happen?
Yeah. Oh, you
How
don't
did
have to tell
get
me.
like this?
You don't have to tell me. Every single day, I have hundreds of comments, sometimes thousands of comments from aggressive conspiracy believers. The big one for me right now is people who believe in the planet Nibiru, and that it's hiding behind the sun, and videos that are very clearly offset lens reflection showing what looks like a second sun, but it's just a reflection in the glass. Is
Yeah.
a planet or a second sun, but they believe this with religious fervor.
Oh, yeah.
So when you prove to them what they're seeing is just a reflection, you're a CIA agent, or you're a Fed, or you're a non-believing Gentile, and your end is coming, and it's just like, oh, why? But you get that with all kinds of things. Giants, God, the skinwalker thing has turned into a conspiracy for some people. The reptilians, it's just never ending. It's never end. I don't know. Maybe it's like that whole starfish thing where there's all these starfish on the beach and the guy is throwing them in and someone asks, why are you doing that? It doesn't matter. There's too many. And he throws one and he says, well, it helped that one. It's kind of like, that's how I feel about the whole conspiracy thing. Like maybe if I can just convince one person that there's not giants in Canada, it'll be worth it. Well, maybe. I don't know.
So I hear you, and I think another reason why we put together these shows is this is so weird, and maybe it's not that weird, but we've been talking about how weird it is, the cast and the crew, that the paranormal world is so, uh, forgive me, but white cisgender male
Mm.
dominated. And actually, and I don't mean to get political, but like that's who we are, and we're not going to hide that. So like, also they're like staunch Republicans, like many of them leaning into QAnon and stuff. And
Mm.
we're, we've been talking in the background, like, are we gonna like just not cover the political thing, or how are we gonna handle this? And we just all agreed, like, it's too important not to bring it up, because
Mm.
just like you could get to maybe one person who's not going to fall down that QAnon rabbit hole or whatever it is. We think that same way. We're not going to abandon our beliefs about things just because it's not popular. And also, we made the shows to say, like, look, there are other people who would like to investigate the paranormal.
You're talking about the queer feminist aspect to like the
Oh yeah,
yeah.
that, and also just like what's happening from like a
Oh
conspiracy
yeah,
right
yeah, yeah, yeah.
wing, situation. You mentioned the Skinwalker.
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much because I really don't want to call anybody out specifically, but there's a lot there in the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
paranormal TV world.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. um, yeah, and you are correct. Like I said, I can't do paranormal investigation shows. I really cannot. Um,
Until now, maybe.
until now, I was actually another reason why I find your concept interesting is a while back, last summer, I think. I was asked to do an interview for a queer themed paranormal investigation show that Kristen Stewart had come up with an
Yeah,
idea for. Yeah.
me
So,
too.
okay, I did an interview for that. Never heard back from anybody. I don't know anyone that has, to be honest with you. I don't even know if
Same.
it's still a thing. But the more I got looking at it, the more I realized this is a show meant to be fabulous. This is like Queer Eye for the paranormal eye. This is not the type of show that I thought it was going to be. And I kind of hyped up that idea for a while because, in my mind, I feel queer people tend to be more receptive to the paranormal. And I don't necessarily mean that they're more receptive as in inherently intuitive or something like that. You know, when you are a queer person, you are naturally going against social norms, right? And until recently, it's been a social norm that you didn't believe in the paranormal. It wasn't logical. It wasn't rational. You didn't talk about it. If you've had experiences with the paranormal, you didn't talk about it until very recently, really. And I think queer people have always been a little bit more apt to discuss those type of things and be open-minded to those type
Hmm.
of encounters. So that's why I was looking forward to that show. I wasn't expecting it to be like, "Hey, ghost, hey," which is
Which
exactly
is
what it
what
was
it's
going to
gonna
be.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I like the concept that you folks are doing because it does. You're using queer people to be entertaining or to appeal to a particular demographic. That's not where it's
No.
going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, somebody asked us this in another live recently. We didn't do the full queer cast and crew on purpose. It just happened. It
Mm.
was so weird how it happened. And some of the people that are coming on for season 2 that we're talking with now are not queer. So we won't always have an all queer cast and crew. That was just a fluke. It was a cool fluke though, because it did change the way that we investigated. It changed the way that Seth felt, from basically what you just said, that the queer people are generally a wee bit more open to this shit.
Mm.
And yeah, I think that we're not going at it from the gate like this is going to be a queer like, oh my God, fabulous show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
doing makeovers on the undead and all that jazz. That's
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you should do that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that, oh, were you going to say something?
No, no.
Oh, well, I do want to say one thing to the folks that are coming in too on either end. Like, if you have questions for either of us, if you have questions for me about these two shows and like what we've got going on and how you can support them, because we're doing a Kickstarter right now. We have 4 days left. So yeah, if you have questions about that or just like our paranormal investigations, and then for my people, if you have questions for Jeremy about the paranormal from the Scully perspective, if you don't mind me using that term.
Yeah, someone actually asked a question here, Donovan. Why am I comparing LGBTQIA plus to spirituality stuff? So what I meant when I said I'm of the opinion that queer people are more, I don't know what the word I want to use is, sensitive to or maybe accepting of the paranormal, is kind of based on societal norms and gender roles. If you look at the differences between men and women traditionally with gender roles, men are generally expected to be the logical, business type, not believe in the paranormal, not accept the paranormal, things like that. Whereas women, that pressure isn't there as much. And there are some people who attribute that to the idea that women are more intuitive and sensitive to the paranormal. That's a theory. So my thought is, well, queer people typically aren't living up to those standard gender roles anyway. So queer people might be a bit more open-minded too. I guess you could use the word sensitive to the paranormal or intuitive, not because it's inherent, but because queer people aren't living under the pressure of gender norms.
The binary, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Someone said, how do I find the new show? So for season 1, the show will be on YouTube, and you can find out more where that is if you go to newblood.tv. Everything is there. So you can subscribe to the channel now, and you can also subscribe to our Discord. Jeremy, I'd love to invite you to the Discord as well. It's bananas in there. Everybody, there's loads of people. It's rapidly growing. Everybody's talking about the weirdest shit. So, yeah. You won't be covering in season 2. That's a great question. So there are 2 shows, and I don't know if you know this, Jeremy. So the first one is this episodic sort of ghost hunting show. So we kind of took the formula of your standard ghost hunting show, and I feel like maybe paranormal investigation is better just because hunting something is not really my jam. But we do that same thing where we go to a place where they have reports of high strangeness, and then we try to make contact with whatever the people there think the entities are. And we do that a number of ways. We do it through tech, like you see on most shows, but we also do it through ritual. A lot of us are witches and vampires and all kinds of, other kin. And we do like psychic readings, things like that. And Michelle Belanger, who you might know from a bunch of the shows, is someone who comes in and does like a psychic read of the space prior, but knows nothing about the space, which is pretty standard. The other show is a deep dive, and I think that's the one that you're asking about, MJ, which is where we just see what happens when a bunch of folks go and hang out in a haunted house together. And some of them are vampires. So it gets really crazy. It's just this like initial impetus of the question was, is Fen a vampire? And that happened through a bunch of synchronicities. And so we follow that, and it lands us in this haunted house. And we spend a lot of time there. and weird shit happens. The shit that happens on the like in the side streams though, all the synchronicities that start to unfold, which I find the most fascinating about investigating the paranormal. That's what's leading us now to season 2. So this is the long answer of I don't fucking know, but there's all these things leading us different places. One way is the vampire Jack Townsend, who we found synchronistically. I don't know if y'all knew that.
So there's a few people on my end, and I'm curious too, asking about the vampire aspect. What? Just go into it if you want.
Yeah.
What do we mean? Some are vampires.
Yeah, I know. This is tough because we're taking like a lot of different elements and putting them in the traditional paranormal space. So a vampire, as far as I understand it, and I'm still learning, is somebody who requires like vital pranic energy from others in ways that we don't all need. And there are people who are lifestylers who just like to, they have the look and they wear the fangs and all of that. And there are people that are just lifestylers and that's it. They just like the vibe. And then there's people who are lifestylers and who, feel like they have this energetic exchange that they need. And then there's people who are neither of those. I mean, then there's people who are just the people who need the pranic energy and don't do the lifestyle at all. I mean, they're all around people who take, in this case, psychic energy, it's not, there are those that drink blood. None of the ones that we work with do. That is one thing, MJ, to go back to your question, we're gonna tackle that because there's a whole group of vampires currently, modern day vampires, that are called sanguinarians or sanguines, and they drink blood. And honestly, okay. I don't know much about them. I'm a documentarian. This show is very much about me, like throwing myself into a mix of a bunch of people and seeing what's what. I don't know if that answered it. Did it?
Yeah, I think so. So when you're talking about vampires, I think people obviously have the notion that what you're referring to, when you say someone is a real vampire, the first thing people assume is, oh, this is someone that drinks blood, right? But that isn't necessarily what you have to be consuming, if anything, to be a vampire per se. It's not someone that's going out and drinking blood. You can be like a psychic vampire or just identify, I guess, as a vampire. Would that be a correct statement?
Right. Like the lifestylers are the ones who are just identifying with that aesthetic. And then the psychic vampires, and then, like I said, the sanguinarians are the ones who do actually feel that they need blood. We're working with psychic vampires who just feel very depleted without taking some direct psychic energy from other people. And I will say that it's one of those things. I'm a skeptical believer in all things. I will say, and I've been a seeker since really young. Nothing has ever felt like a psychic vampire feeding on me. And that's a major spoiler alert for season 1. It is a very, very acute, unusual experience that I did not expect. I kind of expected that it was not going to be a big deal. And I was like, oh, we're going to be fine. And I tried to just finish my directing duties of that day. And it was gnarly. I can't tell you too much because it's so interesting to see on screen and I look like a dumbass. But yeah, it's crazy. So, I mean, if you've done like Reiki or craniosacral therapy or, like even an intense, what was that? Oh, something cool happened. TikTok's like a video game. I don't understand it yet.
I don't either. And you would think after like 2 years and almost 1 million followers, I would have this jazz down pat, but I can't even remember. No, I can't even remember how to get out of a live most of the time when I do live. Just sit here like, how do I turn this thing off, kids?
Your face is like right up here.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. something's happening. Okay, that went away. So somebody said, I don't know what I was just saying. Now I have all these questions. So Fen or Jeremy, how do you deal with sensing spirits that just get very pushy of wanting to be noticed? Do you want to answer?
You can go ahead. I'll go after you.
Okay. So, trying to think about something that happened on season 1. I think it's really rare that spirits get pushy in our experience. I think a lot of that, like everything is a demon thing, is kind of exhausting. If something does happen, then we just state a boundary. And, I think one time on set, things got kind of hairy with folks. And so we did like a double boiled saltwater thing, which again, we could go really down a rabbit hole with this. Like, is it the belief in the fact that the salt water works, or is it, so there's all of that. But yeah, I mean, we just usually talk to them like politely, like you would with someone who's being a jackass in a meat suit. And then sometimes if they get too pushy, we'll maybe be more forceful with our energy, or we'll just leave.
Yeah, I've heard many people mention the importance of talking to whatever you might be experiencing, and I think let me backtrack. So I have had some experiences with what could be called a very pushy entity, and I've talked about it on my lives many times. And this is the time I got punched in my bedroom by a shadow entity, or what seemed like a shadow entity. And not only did it punch me twice, which I couldn't feel, by the way, mind you, but it would put what appeared to be its arm on a weapon that I have in my bedroom. And going back to what I initially said in the very beginning of this, when I was talking about most experiences that I've had could be explained by something mundane. This experience I had with this shadow entity, I could possibly chalk up to insomnia and maybe lucid dreaming, but I don't know, because the time it seemed to punch me, I was going to bed, but I hadn't been asleep yet. So when this happened, I said, enough is enough. I'm going to do something. I'm going to cleanse my space, which I did with incense. Never had an issue again. But to your point, is that something that legitimately works? Because I don't even know if the shadow entity is a genuine shadow entity. I don't know if it was actually there or something inside my mind. So does this ritual cleansing actually work? I don't know. But does it give me peace of mind? Does it make me feel as though whatever this entity is now gone or soothed, or whatever the case may be, so now I can go to sleep without being punched by a shadow man? I think that is a definite possibility. So when I do things like that, whether it be cleansing a space, or whether it be putting up different measures to ward off negative energy, I'm doing it knowing that what I am doing is very likely just something to give me peace of mind, rather than something that might actually be protecting me from some type of paranormal entity. So I would say anything that you do that you might believe in to a degree, whether it necessarily works or not, as long as it's giving you peace of mind, I find that generally helps. If it doesn't help, maybe you've got something really bad going on. But I find it generally helps. Blue lighting and the color blue. From my Appalachian folklore, obsession. Haint blue is a very common color
Yeah.
brought to us from the Gullah Geechee and spread throughout Appalachia as a way to ward off evil spirits or haints. My house is blue everywhere, blue lighting, in every room. And what's interesting about that is there's been studies that show that blue lighting calms the mind. It's been installed in places where people have a history of many people taking their own life, and it's cut down on that. So does blue lighting help ward off evil spirits, or does it simply calm the mind and give you peace of mind? I don't know, but that's how I deal with what could be an aggressive or pushy entity.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have another person on the crew who's an advanced practitioner, I'll say, magical practitioner, and she finds like paraphernalia or like the accoutrement like kind of annoying, and so she just like, well, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. I put it in my mind and I do it. Then there's me as a practicing eclectic witch. Like, I like all of it. I'm like, I want the incense and I want, because for me, I'm very tactile and I want all of that to feel very, I don't know, protecting and also like connecting with whoever you're doing the spell or working with, or even just like a basic circle. So I go back and forth all the time. There's absolutely profound things that have happened in my life that I cannot explain. I don't, I just always say I don't know shit about fuck. I just don't. I mean, this is like, I don't, we don't even know really much about these bodies, let alone
Yeah.
what's going on in the
Yeah.
universe.
And the paranormal wouldn't be paranormal if we understood it. It would be normal. So, I do what works for you is my thought process.
Yeah.
Because clearly there's not a single answer, and there's not a single thing that works for everybody because everybody's using different things that seem to work, whether that be sage, which I don't recommend, or incense or prayers or whatever the case may be. If it works for you, it works for you. That's fine. But an aesthetic is fun. You got to have a little bit of an aesthetic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You need the candles, and you need all that jazz. Whether it's necessary or not, you still need to have it.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a really pushy ghost once in an apartment that my wife and I lived in LA, and I was really struggling with it. I was like, what is happening? This is unusual for me. I said, hey, can you leave me alone? Like, I don't know what's going on. I went to a shop in LA that I fucking love. It's owned by all of these queer folks. And I walked in, and this very fabulous man was like, honey, you have an attachment. And I was like, I know. Can you help me? And he did. He gave me like a black candle thing, and it wasn't super expensive. He was just like, go do this. And I did every step he said. And then the entity left me alone. So it's like sometimes you need a little help from your friends, too, to get things done, so to speak, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Probably the first experience I ever had with anything like that was when I was young, and my grandfather died, and I was living in the house where he died, and I was having a really hard time sleeping for a while after he died. Just couldn't stay asleep. I would wake up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason. Then I started to wake up, and I didn't necessarily see someone standing beside my bed, but it felt like there was someone standing, beside my bed. Then I started to wake up, and I would look over in my bed, and I could see the physical outline of someone laying under my blankets, like an actual physical outline of a person under my blankets. I would jump out of my bed, pull off all my blankets, turn on the lights, and of course there would be no one there. So this happened for several weeks, and I got to the point where I was just exhausted. I couldn't sleep. I didn't want to, this was the early 2000s, so I didn't want to tell a lot of people, like, hey, there's been someone in my bed at night. I don't know who it is. It might be my grandpa. What do I do? But I eventually decided to ask my mom, who was just in here. I don't know if she still is. I'm like, I'm going to tell her just to see what she thinks. And she said, do you think it's your grandpa? And I said, I don't know, it could be. And she said, look, the next time it happens, just say, Pap or Grandpa, I love you, I miss you, but I can't sleep. You're keeping me up. It's time for you to move on. So a couple nights later, happened again. I roll over. It looks like there's someone in my bed. I get up, pull all my sheets off. No one there. And I just decided to try it. You know, I said, hey, Grandpa, if this is you, I love you, I miss you, but I got to get some sleep. It's time for you to move on. Never happened again. So was it truly my grandpa? Did he really move on just from me saying it? You know, was it just the closure that I needed? I don't know. But yeah, that was the first time I ever experienced talking to or doing something that seemed to help whatever that could have been.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's one of those situations where you can't choose really, you know. I mean, there's no way you'll ever know, I guess, is a better way to put it.
Yeah.
And I think that happens all the time. I think that it's mysterious. I don't know what that guy was doing at my house, you know, and it felt masculine, and he felt like I think the guy at the store was like, oh, he was a drug addict and he died right outside your house and he used to rage all night. And so nothing would happen in the apartment, and then like lights would go out, we'd get ready for bed, and he would just like you know, like he was just like wanting to party. And I used to be a big partier, so I figured like maybe that's why he was messing with me.
Yeah.
And he was like, come on, let's like do drugs. And I was like, no, I'm so tired, I have to sleep, you know.
You didn't
so
have like glow sticks floating around your house or anything?
no, I had like Teletubbies or yeah. Yeah. Someone asked you, and I know you already answered this, but I don't know if you want to, like, you know, for people who are coming in again, Jeremy, why is debunking so important to you, and how did you get started?
So I'll give a little bit more of a background to this. So my student advisor for my religious studies degree was an expert in contemporary religious movements. And many of those contemporary religious movements that we studied, thanks to him, are groups that you could call a cult. It's not very PC to use the word cult. I use religious movement, but for the general public, these are cults. People like the Jim Jones crowd, Heaven's Gate, David Koresh in Waco. And thankfully, I was able to learn about how these movements start, the things that trigger people, to normal people, intelligent people, to believe what everyone else might consider to be irrational. And the danger that poses. And when I came on this app, it became very apparent to me that because of the way algorithms work, there are certain possible paranormal phenomena that trend, right? And because of those trends, these are things that get shoved in people's face all the time, constantly, daily, every day, every other video. So you are essentially creating a perfect situation for people to create trendy beliefs or even trendy conspiracies that are either a gross misrepresentation of traditional beliefs or have the potential to be very dangerous. One example, which is actually the first thing I started debunking, is the whole notion that skinwalkers are this strange, monstrous entity that can turn into people, and they hide and they yell for help to lure you somewhere. That is a paranormal phenomenon that many people believe they have experienced. It's also incredibly dangerous because you're telling impressionable people, young people, and even adults, that if you hear someone yelling for help, it's a monster, right? Now, obviously, you shouldn't go running toward someone if you hear them yelling for help, because you might not be. It could be a person that wants to harm you, or you might not be prepared to harm them. But you should be calling the proper authorities. But when we convince people that there's monsters out there yelling for help, especially children, they're not going to call the proper authorities because they're hearing a monster. So this was an example of a trend that's still trending, that I feel is, and many people feel is very dangerous, and something that should be debunked. So I look at these things and I see the potential for cult-like following, the potential for conspiracy, and the potential for dangerous beliefs to spread like wildfire. And that's why I think it's kind of vain to be like, I am the voice of reason. But I try very hard to be a reasonable voice on an app where that reasonable voice tends not to exist. And if it does exist, it doesn't get views, because nobody likes the fun police, right? Nobody likes the party pooper coming in and being like, there's no freaking monster in the woods yelling for help, kids. So I've tried to do it in an entertaining way, just to balance things out. I am a Libra. I'm all about balance. We gotta, we gotta balance it out, kids. That's why.
Yeah. Well, but you get views. I mean, you're a very popular platform, so there must have been a desire for that to some extent.
It's my voice, and I don't think it has anything to do with the
No.
desire for people to debunk things. It's because I come on here and people think I sound like anime characters, or a sexy daddy, and it's like, hey, daddy says there's no skinwalkers in your basement. So that's what drives it, really, in my opinion. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Well, it's like they'll get it anyway. So, but have you seen The Matrix? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, parts of it, unfortunately.
Yeah. My mom says you sound like Mr. Anderson.
Oh, Mr.
Yeah, the bad dude, that's in The Matrix, that's got the glasses.
Is that the guy that plays Elrond in The Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Good
Okay.
job. Yeah, him. Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
know what's funny? You have people that genuinely believe that the Matrix is real, and they're posting videos showing what they believe to be glitches in the Matrix. And someone needs to step in and say, hey, that's a movie, folks.
Yes. Well, I mean, just to play devil's advocate, though, I mean, what about tulpas? I mean, we can create things within our physical environment. We do that all the time, I think. And tulpas are so powerful. And I think in some cases, when you were talking about skinwalkers, that could be a tulpa,
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I would take a different spin on that. To me, I've yet to see genuine evidence to suggest that we are manifesting something in the physical world. To me, when I think of that phenomenon, I am more on the side of we are creating a reality in our psyche. And really, what is reality if not what is in our mind? Unless we're considering physical reality to be some type of separate reality. But it's people creating a reality in their mind. Now, for some things, that's okay. But when does that become a danger? And I think an example I would point to is Slender Man, because this is an example where people bring up that phenomenon quite a bit, where they feel that people believed in Slender Man to the point that Slender Man actually manifested in reality, physically. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that Slender Man became a reality to people in their mind. So much so that we have a case of, children who were willing to commit violent acts against another child because they believed in this Slender Man legend, right? So I don't necessarily fall into the category of believing that we can create something that physically manifests, but I do believe that things and beliefs do become a reality within our mind, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, the rake is another great example of that. When you tell people that the rake was the product of a contest online for scary stories and it was entirely made up, people will lose their mind. They do not believe that. They will tell you that they've seen it, heard it, talked to it, experienced it, and it's like, no, you didn't. It was made up. But to them, it is absolutely 100% real.
Yeah. So then, I mean, we're getting into quantum physics here, but at that point, like, can you even say something like it didn't happen to you? You could, I mean, because that's their experience, and I mean, it gets really hairy.
It does.
It gets,
And
yeah, it's hard to say anything definitive, I feel.
yeah, it does. And, you know, I fall into the trap of condescension often. And when someone has a belief that I consider to be irrational, because that belief falls completely outside the realm of rational, I have a tendency to assume this person is an irrational person. This person must have, they are crazy, they must be delusional, they must be hallucinating, whatever the case may be. But more often than not, and this is especially the case with conspiracy theories, the people who believe what most people would consider to be irrational are not irrational people. They do not have some type of condition that is caused some type of psychosis. They are perfectly normal people who, for one reason or another, believe something that is not necessarily rational. So it's difficult for me not to be like, you're freaking crazy,
Yeah.
because you are right. People are seeing things, and this is something that I know from personal experience. I have absolutely seen things and experienced things that would be considered paranormal, would be considered irrational to claim that I believe and see. Do I know that it was something paranormal? No, I don't. Could it be something psychological? Absolutely. But would I be comfortable with someone saying, you're freaking crazy, man, you're a lunatic? No, because I know that I saw it. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind, and it's something that I certainly need to keep in mind more often, and I do try to keep it in mind. People are seeing something. People are experiencing something. Just because we don't know the reason why or what it truly is doesn't mean they didn't have that experience. And we do need to be careful about labeling someone crazy or a liar or a grifter, although a lot of people are crazy liars and grifters, but that's beside the point.
Well, and I understand where you're coming from your platform, and it's good to have, lots of different perspectives on this kind of stuff. We all, like, full disclosure, we come at it from a completely different perspective in that our first pass is to believe people. And my entire podcast, and that's how this whole adventure started. I started a podcast called Follow the Woo, and I just followed the woo wherever it took me. And I gave people just the benefit of the doubt and gave them that space to open up. And what I started to realize was that people who were like super straight-laced, like, for instance, this one was one of my favorite, my great aunt, who is just a classy lady. She is not going to be doing any of this paranormal. She doesn't know she's not into it. And one day I started talking to her about the podcast, and it was like an alien episode that we were chatting about. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she says, and her husband's there. She's been married to her husband for, like, I don't know, my uncle, like 50 years or something, long ass time. And she said, I saw an alien once. And we're just like, like, what?
Yeah.
Like, Aunt Susan, had you never told us? And so she just said, I thought that I never told anyone. My siblings know because we experienced it together. And it's actually on my podcast. And I just said, can I record you telling the story? And this is a woman that would she kept that in for like 50 mother effing years because she was afraid of that people would think she was crazy. And I think there are so many of those folks who are not crazy, but had an experience that they cannot explain. And I'm always mining for those folks, you know, in those stories.
Yeah. I've told people before on my channel, I'm sure people often forget, and I probably need to do a reminder at some point, because people are always asking me, do you believe in the paranormal? Do you not believe in the paranormal? You know, blah, blah, blah. And it's like I've said before, I don't need to believe in the paranormal. I know that the paranormal exists. There are things in this universe that we can't explain. I know that. It's not a matter of belief.
Mm-hmm.
What I debunk are people. I'm not trying to debunk the paranormal. I'm debunking people who want to sell you the paranormal for one reason or another.
Yeah. That was
because I'm sure you've noticed it's big business for people, not just financially, but for clout. You know, I won't talk trash about any particular show, but there are shows on television which are very clearly using the paranormal for financial gain.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just, I'm sure I'll probably give it away, but
we know who it is.
No, you might not. One example that I find often happens with the paranormal, especially here in America, is people going back to indigenous American lore and indigenous American beliefs to try to validate whatever it is that's going on in a particular area. Because for some reason, if you say this is indigenous Americans believe this, then it like gives, I don't know, some kind of credence to whatever it is they're trying to say. But then they'll throw in UFOs and like government experimentation. And it's like, what does that have to do with indigenous American beliefs or indigenous American curses? And it's all to try to validate and give credence to whatever it is that they're trying to sell us.
Right.
And that is the kind of thing that bugs the hell out of me. And when I see that people are buying what they're selling them and then spreading it as if it's the truth because they've bought it, that is what I try to, that is what I try to debunk and get rid of. Because it's an epidemic on social media, really.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that too. And you said that was so well said, that you believe in the paranormal. It's not, that's not what you're debunking. It's always humans. It's always fucking humans being dum-dums. I am behind in the chat, so I got to check up here. So people are just saying yes. A lot of people in the chat identify as vampiric, and so they're saying consent is always the most important thing of living vampires. Somebody asked, what other creatures are you investigating, skinwalkers and things like that? That's a great question. So no, we're not investigating skinwalkers. We're very careful with it, like you just were talking about, actually, indigenous legends, and in some cases tulpas, and just like beliefs. And so we try to be very respectful of that and don't go too far down any of those rabbit holes. I don't know what a skinwalker actually is. I've watched a bunch of shows. I've done a bunch of research. But I feel that maybe white folks have like taken that term and done something else with it. Mm-hmm. What you're kind of insinuating. And what it might have originally been was something so wildly different. Like it's this horrible game of telephone. Other than, you said what other things, some places people said they thought they had a cryptid situation. We could go down the rabbit hole of cryptids. Like, are they interdimensional beings? Are they primates that we haven't discovered yet, or other species? As a whole thing. But we go and investigate what the people tell us. So we had cryptids, we had fae, we had aliens, ghosts, of course, your garden variety ghosts that this point. So yeah, it's all of those things. Somebody said I'm a vampire. What's happening? You got any on your end, Jeremy?
Um, can I get a daddy chill? I'm not sure that pertains
Daddy
to
chill.
I'm not sure that pertains to conversation.
I love that.
No, mostly just people. Well, there's my ex-boyfriend. Hi there.
Oh, hey. Is that
No,
good or bad?
I don't know. It is what it is. The people asking about Wendigos and skinwalkers and so on. You know, the skinwalker thing, I'll just comment on
Yeah,
that.
definitely. 'Cause it came up again in my chat too.
So you are correct. The modern urban legend that is skinwalkers is insane. It's a whole new world from the traditional beliefs from indigenous people, particularly the Dene and southwestern indigenous people, from what they originally believed. And in that tradition, these are essentially people who are using what, for lack of a better word, we could call magic. I think they would say prefer medicine, bad medicine, to do things like curse people, to shapeshift into animals, etc. The way that I typically describe it, I'm not calling them a witch because that is a European concept. I would say that if you needed something to compare them to, it would be a witch, an evil witch, right? But people have taken that concept and turned it into some kind of monster, like a shape-shifting monster that is apparently everywhere, not just in the regions of the people whose beliefs you are appropriating. It's just everywhere. And the common in Appalachia, it's not even part of Appalachian folklore, not even part of the folklore of the indigenous people who are from Appalachia. And I think Supernatural is to blame for this, because I know they had a few episodes where they were like skinwalkers turning into your dog. And it's just so ridiculous that it's gone from, these are people, powerful people, that can shapeshift into animals, to some kind of weird monster that's turning into your chihuahua. And it's just...
Terrifying.
Yeah, it's so disrespectful and such a massive misrepresentation of indigenous lore. That said, you will encounter folklorists, I know there's a few on this app, who believe in the notion that folklore changes and adapts over time, which is true. And they have essentially accepted urban legends as American folklore, and that skinwalkers are now part of American folklore. I don't agree with that. This is something that's very, very a taboo subject amongst indigenous communities. It's not something that they talk about. It's something that has been taken from them, altered to be more scary and marketable. And again, it's something that people are selling for clout, for money, whatever the case may be, and it's something that doesn't belong to non-indigenous people in this country.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point too. This whole conversation we've been talking about sellable. Humans trying to take a thing that's not theirs and making it sellable. This is a huge problem, not just in the paranormal. And one of the things, obviously, that's the most sellable is fear. Fear, and that's another huge reason that we wanted to make these shows, because we wanted to take the teeth out of paranormal investigation.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't mean that spooky things don't happen and tons of weird shit happens. It just means we're not making it and editing it in the editing room for jump scares. We're not trying to freak people out by an entity that we exaggerated, and that wasn't even an entity that we, it was just like, oh, let's make this. We don't fake anything. And the thing people don't talk about so much in paranormal investigations is that most of the time they're quite boring. I mean, obviously we speed things up for you because that, you don't want to watch 100 hours of footage of us just like sitting around. But there's a lot of that on all of the huge shows, and they're taking pieces, and in a lot of cases we know for sure because we're connected to many of the network shows, that they're just faking it. They're just like, oh, here, do this reaction because you're really scared. And it's fake. It's not, no.
Yeah, I agree, and I've heard stories. I've heard stories about spirits or different entities scratching people. I've even heard stories about an entity here a block away in my town that has lifted people up and caused people to become sick. But never in my life have I heard of someone being killed by some type of spiritual entity or a ghost. The encounters that I've had, like the shadow entity that punched me, I didn't even feel it. I saw it. I didn't feel it. So I don't understand why people are so afraid of ghosts in particular. They don't hurt you. They can't hurt you. They're not a corporeal being. It's frightening to think that there might be some other possibly sentient being in your home that shouldn't be there. But they're not gonna like choke you or anything like that. It's no need to be scary.
Yeah, I think there are times that I'm scared of things. Mostly it's of other humans in body, not ghosts.
Oh yeah.
But there are times where there are things that I am afraid of when we're doing investigations. And I think the reason that I am a paranormal investigator is because I'd like to learn to be less judgmental toward things that I don't understand. I think we're just taught that if something's different than us, that is bad, and everybody should kind of be these like Stepford wives, we're all doing the same fucking shit. And I think that's ridiculous. So we're doing it because this is, Neil deGrasse Tyson, do you ever listen to him? And when he talks about how many fucking galaxies there are and shit, we just, again, don't know shit about fuck. So we're just like, let's follow our curiosity and see what this feels like. What does it feel like if we do this experiment and this experiment? And how about if we add more people? And what if we go to this place that has seemingly this thing? Well, how could we get it to interact with us? Like it's mostly just we're putting ourselves in really unique experiments and acting as kind of guinea pigs to see what is all this. And there are no answers. We have zero answers, just so you know.
No, I agree with you. And again, living in this house, that's something that I do, that I've done ever since I've lived here. Like, people are always like, wow, can you stand to live there? Why would you want to live there? And it's like, because this is testing myself. This is like, whenever something happens here, I have a unique opportunity to sit down and examine the situation, examine my own state of mind, and determine whether or not something that I'm experiencing could be legitimate, or is it just because I haven't slept in a day and a half and I just chugged 4 cups of coffee, so I'm having auditory hallucinations, Like, this is an ample opportunity for me to freaking live in a place where I can examine what's going on every single day if I wanted to. So yeah, I absolutely get that. It's a challenge, and I think it's a good challenge.
Yeah, it is a good challenge, and I think we hope to inspire others to sort of, pierce the veil and investigate what's happening beyond like your very boring, I imagine, 9-to-5 job, and your, all of these. If you're in America, especially, these like very rigid norms that you have to like, I get in my car and I do this fucking thing and then I do this fucking thing, and it's like, well, what happens when you just like kind of pierce that a little bit? What kind of weird can you get yourself into? And what's so cool is that it's pretty fucking fast, it's almost like the second that you veer a little bit, I always say it wants whatever it is, whether it's just like energy, I don't know. I mean, obviously it's some kind of energy, but it wants whatever that is, wants to play back with you. It wants to play. And that's how we play, that's how we plan for these shows is like, let's go poke and play consensually with other entities and beings and whatever people think they have in their houses or, other locations as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Going back to what you mentioned earlier about everything has to be scary. Why does every paranormal investigation show have to happen at night in the dark without the lights on?
I
That is like, I don't understand that at all. Like, do people think that ghosts only come out when it's dark? Are they light averse? I don't understand.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and we acknowledge that multiple times in the series,
Okay.
and it is light multiple times. So somebody asked, "Will you be doing anything with Mothman?" And the answer is yes, actually. Some sync again. We manage these shows in the way that we just like follow whatever comes up and the synchronicities that the team experiences, and Mothman is one of them. Not in season 1, but in season 2, I think.
That's my neck of the woods. That's
Yeah. So you know what? I guess this is as good a time as any to ask you, would you be interested in hopping on and consulting for one of our shows?
consulting. Why am I acting like I
Consulting?
wouldn't? Why am I acting like I wouldn't be a good person to consult on Appalachian folklore? That's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's long been a connection between the Mothman and the entity known as Indrid Cold.
Yes.
And Indrid is from just down the road from me in Parkersburg. In my opinion, one of the most terrifying paranormal tales ever. Because God, that's just the god awful smile
Ooh,
gets me every time
I know
I
it's
think about
creepy.
it. Yeah, the smiling man thing is awful. But yeah, that is that's Ohio, West Virginia territory right there.
Yeah. Vampire Jack says, has Jeremy ever been on an investigation? Have you ever done like a proper
Not a
paranormal?
proper, no, not a proper. Well, no, not a proper investigation that was completed sober. No.
Okay.
Outside me investigating my own experiences, no, no.
Okay. Do you want to?
I would love to. My biggest concern about that type of thing is how well will I be able to control. So, so when I talk about confirmation bias, which is always my biggest concern when watching paranormal theme shows, I realize that that goes both ways. Even though I am someone that accepts the absolute existence of the paranormal, as I discussed earlier, I do tend to err on the side of skepticism. So, will I be able to drop the confirmation bias that I have that everything people are experiencing is perfectly mundane? But at the same time, sometimes I forget that I am a human being, just like every other human being, and it's impossible not to have some degree of confirmation bias when you do something like that. So it's just a matter of me or anybody trying to keep it balanced and fair and not let that bias get the best of you. Which is why I think it's always good in a show like you're talking about to have people from all camps, to have people who are a bit more skeptical, to have people who are a bit less skeptical, to have people who are full-on believers. That way it can be balanced out.
Yeah. Well, my chat is kind of blowing up about this, and so basically, I am going to officially ask. I am inviting you. The New Blood team is inviting you to come on an investigation if you'd like to,
Oh, I'd
and you
love
can.
to. Now you got to give me a little time to lose the weight, though. That would be the only
Oh,
thing
get
I was
out of
worried
here!
about. You got to lose a little weight so you can fit in the nice clothes. You know what I'm saying?
Get out of here! No, no, no. All bodies welcome. Somebody said the Bell Witch, asking about that, and actually, that is somewhere that we are most likely going to in season 2 for again the synchronicities. Um,
Yeah, that's actually something I've been looking into as well. I just bought the journal. I can't remember the gentleman's name who first wrote about it.
oh, is it John Bell?
Yes. No. Yes. No. I'll have to look. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah. Yeah.
So someone says, "What about Goat Man?" That has also come up strangely. I'd love to hear your interpretation of Goat Man.
I don't know, but I do know that Goatman has gotten people killed. Not because Goatman killed them, but because they were investigating where they shouldn't have been investigating and got hit by a train. So Goatman does indeed kill people, just not in the way you think.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot there. And Goatman's a weird one because there's so many different Goatmans.
Yeah.
There's like men, and each one has its own very unique story behind it.
Yep.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Okay, I can't catch up with everybody in the chat, but thank you all for coming. Someone says, what did they say? Oh, what will you be? Have you already filmed season 2? No, we have not. We have pieces that belong in season 2 because even when you're making a documentary and you're telling the truth, you do have to kind of find the narrative. I think the narrative actually finds you. So there are pieces that are pulling into season 2, but we haven't filmed anything, aggressively for season 2. Yeah, Goatman's Bridge. Yeah, all the Goatmans and all the bridges.
Yeah. Someone was asking here if the Bell Witch is in Ohio. No, the Bell Witch is in Tennessee. That's not an Ohio thing.
Someone says John Bell was the one that was killed by poison one of the president. I don't know. Killed by poison one of the presidents when to spend the night. I'm not sure, but I'm sure we'll get into it more at another time. Someone's asked, what do y'all think about voodoo or hoodoo practices?
Well, what do you mean by that? Are you asking if it's so? This is being a religion, right? I would say the same thing I think about all religions. It ain't my business.
It ain't my business.
It ain't my business. People believe what they choose to believe, and to them, it's real. It's not my business to judge for them on their behalf what is real to them. I say that as someone who judges what's real or not to people all the time. But religions is an area where I will not go. I won't go there.
Fair, yeah. Yeah, I would say the same thing, and we stay clear of that. I mean, we will be going to New Orleans at some point, and we'll be, I'm sure, working with people who practice those practices, but we will not, as white folks, be practicing those practices. Exactly. Yeah, somebody said, I think inviting those who believe and practice to speak on it is the best approach to voodoo and hoodoo. Absolutely.
I would agree with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're coming down to the end here, Jeremy, because I actually have to hop on another live in a minute to do a seance.
Oh.
Yes. So I'll be back in just a second. I have to shove pizza in my mouth real quick and then do the next live.
All right. Well, I greatly appreciate it. I do not typically accept invitations to do live streams with other people, but for whatever reason, you folks struck me as being interesting and intriguing and entertaining, and I appreciate your openness and the desire not just to be entertaining. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I greatly appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, right back at you, and I feel honored that you said yes to us, and we were so excited to talk with you. So, yeah, like I mean, it's amazing, and I'm being serious. It's not just for the live. I mean, we would love to work with you.
No, I'd definitely be into it. You can
Yeah,
probably thank Vampire Jack if he's still in here, because I love him so much, and I just want to
he's
wear
so
his
great.
clothes uh, and
Yeah,
his
we
rings.
all.
I'm always like, oh, his rings! I love his rings. So that was that definitely helped a lot.
Yeah, no, he is wonderful, and he has helped us so much with so many different people in this community. And you know, if you do end up working with us in season 2, you'll be working with Jack too. So
we can
that's another perk.
we can exchange ring vendors. This is like
Yeah.
this would be great.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, thank you, Jeremy. And
Mm.
I will, after this crazy Kickstarter is over, I'll reach out to you about being on the show. And to anybody who's watching, we have 4 days left of the Kickstarter. We have amazing perks. We've made over $45,000. You all are amazing. And we need to make a bunch more. So if you could help us with that, that would be great. Just go to newblood.tv, and then if you scroll down, you can click the Kickstarter link and help us out because we want to
Yeah.
make the paranormal queer again.
And on my end, I'm commanding you to go and follow New Blood TV. I was playing. Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Have a good one, Jeremy.
You
I'll talk
too.
to you.
Bye bye.
Bye. Oh, I'm still here. Okay.